Recorded April 14th, 2025. Happy day before you should have filed your taxes earlier day. And with that, Ray.
Yes.
Have you filed your annual duties?
Oh Lord, no, not. But they're coming. They're coming along. They'll be filed. I'm just in time. I'm just in time delivery. You have to know that about me.
Just in time. Okay. All right. Rod, what about you? Have you done your duty?
Yes, I officially filed for our extension. So there you go. That's where you literally have to estimate. You have to go through them anyway, just to estimate, so you can file for an extension so that you can do them later.
Why are you doing an I'm not going to get into your business, but that's fascinating. You have to go through the process, but just say
it's funny. My taxes are complicated. I'm sure Edward's are too. And I'm horrible at keeping track of everything during the year. So, it gets to be like April. I'm like, yeah, I guess we really need to do something with that.
Yeah, I'm actually not horrible at keeping up with stuff. Maybe because I'm a pack rat, so I keep the stuff anyway. It's just, it's all over the place. If I kept everything where it's supposed to be, like my accountant tells me to do, then it wouldn't be that. But I'm telling you, it's
well, for me, it's just like, I think it's also a little bit of, I know I'm going to owe something. I don't want to know what that number is.
Yeah, I'm seeing that number right now. Like, well, there goes that conference. So we'll see how it goes. Not when we got so much money like Ray. She's
please, I have no money. I'm a single mom. Like, leave me alone. I have good. Yes, I have good. Yes, but not money to I don't have discretionary income where I'm just lavishly attending.
You're really good at that. It's almost like you throw money around.
I just yell at people a lot, and it's very emphatic, and so it's just muscle memory at this point.
Muscle memory. All right. Well, let's get off the topic of us not having any money, having to pay our duties, and tomorrow, and that's synonymous. Taxes and duties are the same word. Like if you're traveling through the airport and they say duty free, it's tax free. It was considered part of your patriotic duty to pay your taxes. So that's why
12-year-old brain thinks of something different when you say duty.
You think it's duties? You got to pay your dookie. Duties. Oh man. So Ray, what did you break this week at work?
At work. Let's see. Working with many of the partner ecosystem. Love them. Shout out to Blue Voyant, especially. They're incredible. Lots of discussions around some collaboration. Very exciting stuff. I've also had some opportunities connecting with customers as well, like as in the field, like their account reps. There's a big push for customers who maybe already have a third-party solution in their environment. They want to deploy our Defender for Endpoint in their ecosystem. Let's say they already have the licensing that entitles them to the Defender workloads. We're thinking through what that might look like if this is something to help drive forward in order to ensure that customers are harnessing the full extent of the value they have available to them, and they customers themselves are leading this. So it's been it's a new opportunity for me, kind of cutting my teeth on that, try to frame that for customers as well as the field. So more to come there as we evolve it, but it's basically an overarching cyber resilience initiative, right? Many customers are looking to implement that and move forward in that direction, especially if they already have licensing available to them, and ultimately they have a North Star, but they, maybe they're in organizations that there's the institutional political landscape doesn't make it a straightforward rip and replace. So it's a very interesting spot to be in. More to come as that evolves, and I'm still trying to think of some conference proposals, but Edward, we were supposed to meet so we can spin up a proof of concept on one of them. Lippy's not a clock, title pending.
Well, let's find some time on the back side of the week. My apologies. I totally forgot I was going to be out of the office Thursday and Friday. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. To sort of cap on what you said, while I was driving out of town, I had a good long conversation with Frank. Shout out to you, Frank, co-creator of the show. Say he's coming on for Purview month. You were talking about Dex. He was asking me, are you getting a lot of traction from SMB customers now that they have opened up the E5 or had a new SKU for an add-on for those who may be consuming Microsoft Business, the subscriber editions of Microsoft 365, such as Business Premium, Basic, or Standard. It used to be when you got those, you could not get any security SKUs that were enterprise level to attach to them, right? But now you can. So I say I knew of it, but now if you have these E5 add-ons that you can add on to a commercial grade license, does it allow that SMB customer now to use Dex? Because I know that Dex has requirements about minimum number of seats and things along that line. Microsoft had a business SKU that was semi-enterprise for SMCC, and it was geared toward customers that had 300 employees or less. This one doesn't seem to have that liability. I'll put it here for our actually that's the word of it. E5 security, so and so. But let me get the actual link and put the link in. It's the craziest thing when you copy links out of emails these days, they will not put the actual URL. So maybe it's because I'm doing it. I'm gonna copy
that's a Purview thing, by the way.
And I'm running Purview in my lab. My lab partners. There you go. So that's the link that talks about what I put in there in the nomenclature. Security E5 is now available for M365 Business Premium, because the only other way people were sort of getting around it, actually not even saying on the show, we don't condone. You got to get proper licensing, right? But now if you have Business Premium, which is considered a SMB or advanced consumer SKU, you can go get the full E5 benefits. And now if you can get the E5 benefits, maybe you can use Dex against it now, right? Which is Defender Expert, which is Microsoft first-party security services, right? And you guys, excuse me if I sound like a frog. I was out this weekend on a running road trip and shook too many hands and was hugging too many folks. And now I'm drinking. Whenever I feel like I'm getting a cold, I drink ginger ale. It cures everything, right? And you guys know I
didn't think you sounded like a frog. I thought you sounded fine.
Yeah, you sounded good.
Yeah,
I feel
improved. In fact,
yeah, give me my deeper voice. Yeah, there you go. So that's it. Oh, I actually did something I was not supposed to on a personal note. My doctor, for those who know, I hurt my back pretty bad. I hadn't run like since February. So with my nonprofit and health and running group, we had a regional meetup in Columbia, South Carolina. And actually one that did pretty well considering I thought I was grossly out of shape, but I took first place in my age group for the mile. I ran a 5:39 mile. And then that was Friday night. And then Saturday, I just did the 5K. And I took first place in my age group, I think 22nd overall. I ran like a 20 minutes and some change, 2011. So, Rod, give me 2 more months, man. I'll be back in your wheelhouse. I'll be able to keep up with you. But you talk about somebody that was sore. When you don't run every day, it hurts.
And it's not exactly it's just getting road legs again, right? So when you're inside a lot during the winter or whatever, but it's not the hills, not the climbs, it's the declines that really kill your legs the most.
I slow down. One part of the course is down.
Front of the legs, and sometimes hamstrings. So.
But no, I had a good weekend, drove back. I stopped by the Masters for a little bit while I was there. So when you headed toward Columbia, South Carolina, you passed through Augusta. So went and just see who was about this golf tournament that you seem to have up there every year. Oh, it was packed. There was a lot of golf heads in Augusta. So so that was my weekend. And didn't do too much technical at all. was reading through some book in the hotel room, but yeah, that's it. But hey,
The Gideon, was it the Gideon Bible?
Roy, what did you do? What? The Gideon Bible. I read it cover to cover twice.
That was just one of the books from the nightstand. What did I do this weekend? Oh, I did some stupid stuff. But I think to go back to what Ray was talking about, I do want to highlight that Blue Voyant, she mentioned Blue Voyant in relation to, Ray, it's Defender Experts, it's not Dex. All right. It's Defender Expert.
Internally, there's just so many. It's just it's a long name. It's a long name, and then sometimes folks, even it happens even within the team. Defender 4X, but that's not it. It's Defender Experts. So yes, Rod, our official name is Defender Experts. Internally, shorthand, we just say Dex. It's very cute, very catchy. All hands on decks. It's a whole thing, and then even customers can get into it. It's a lot of fun. However, officially, the branded name is Defender Experts, and with no plan.
I'm gonna have to go with Rod. I was on your team last year, and you kept shortening the name. It bothered me so much. It's like it's Defender Experts. Oh, will she not say? She's saying Dex. I don't know, but no, I'm just kidding. I say Dex too. Yeah. It's actually taking off. It's taking off in the field. It's selling itself of a sort.
It is. Well, back to Blue Voyant, they're actually reached out to me, and they will be on the show June 2nd. Micah Heaton, who listens to this show all the time. So I'm sure Mike is out there listening, either live or probably a replay. But
he's probably writing you a letter right now.
Yeah, most likely. But I didn't break anything. As a lot of people know, I transitioned. I'm sorry, to a new role at Microsoft. Sorry, I couldn't help that.
I just thought you
transitioned to a new role at Microsoft, and I'm really enjoying myself. It's been super fun for the past week. Well, not quite a week. Started last Wednesday. Tomorrow is my 6-year anniversary with Microsoft. I don't know what I'm going to do to celebrate, but it's going to be good. So.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll celebrate on the next show about it. Because
good.
I didn't realize how long I've been here. I was talking to a comrade, and he's about to been here 10 years. And he's like, "Yeah, you and I started at the same time." I'm like, really? Time flies when you're in the big house.
It's a mothership.
When the currency is cigarettes and Twinkies.
That's from a time when we called people comrades, and it was.
I know. I wanted to circle back though. I don't know why. I just demerits on me. I just use corporate jargon here. My psychiatrist recommended that I start doing martial arts. Do either of you do any martial arts, perchance?
Yeah.
Not.
Rod, what do you do? Hold on. Rod, what martial art do you do?
Well, I don't really do anything now, but I used to do kung fu.
Are you serious? Like for real?
For real. For real.
Edward, I believe 1000%. I feel like all the martial arts. He's like,
I did. We talked about this on the show a long time ago.
My basement is full of weapons.
Mine is too.
Yeah,
my base is full of weapons.
I mean, I get it. Like that to me is like a good time. I'm just saying that my doctor is like, "Oh, have you considered martial arts as a thing?" And one of my buddies and then a colleague, actually, my buddy does jujitsu. A colleague I was chatting with was like, "Oh, they do jujitsu," and I was like, "Oh, that's the hugging one. I don't want to hug. I want brutality." So Muay Thai, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, think on it, noodle on it. And get back to me. What do you think I should explore?
You're not a Muay Thai type person.
What do you mean I'm not? Don't tell me what's what. What do you tell me more about why I am not that kind of a person.
Yeah. When somebody kicks you on your leg, you'll find out.
Pretty painful.
Yeah. I have to meet you in person to give you a total martial arts,
what did the psychiatrist recommend?
To see which one would be good. I did like Rod, I chose Kung Fu because so many people were choosing, more mainstream things. They were choosing, Taekwondo, karate. People were even getting into some keto and the keto because they were watching Steven Seagal and what he was doing.
Yeah.
But
Under
Kung
siege,
Fu, I wanted
yeah.
something with difference, and I like fighting with weapons, right? So it gives you something to strive against because you can only start using weapons in your training and your progression. I think you have to be minimum yellow belt, maybe blue, but that was so long ago. But I enjoyed it for sure. My Saifu was one of the best masters I've had. He could fight, right? Yes. But we'll figure out what, to all our listeners, people send in what discipline that you guys think Ray would be best at.
I'll do a montage. You'll see me.
Yeah. I got to see you got some pictures. She said, not this South Park new.
We do have a guest.
We do have a guest. Let's get him, man. And hey, to our listeners out there, this should and our viewers, this should be a familiar face. Mr. Nathan Swift, a architect extraordinaire, one of the most brilliant Sentinel and just Azure architects you ever meet. And when Swift solves, things get solved. So Nathan, welcome back to the show. You looking holiday and festive as ever. You're giving Ren Uri a run for his money with the beard.
Trying to, man. When I grow up, I want to be Ren. So
Who doesn't want to be Ren?
We all do.
So you gave us a readout or a write-out of the dossier of what you're working on. You know what? So we don't lose any fidelity about this crazy mad experiment that you're doing. We're going to let you do it. So welcome back to the show. And Nathan, what you got for us today?
Yeah, absolutely, Edward. Thanks. Oddly enough, week to week, we work with different customers at Microsoft. And one of the things I was researching in the background was, okay, we have MDE telemetry, right? Device process events, device names, name it, device registry changes. And we also try to sell like Defender for Servers P2, right? And so, hey, you can bring in, there's a 500 megabyte per server collection in Sentinel. And so I'm going down this rabbit hole trying to research like what are the differences between the MDE stuff we collect in the telemetry versus Windows security event logs and sysmon monitoring. So chatted with a colleague of yours, Tony Sims, and he recommended Don Murdoch's book, Blue Team Handbook, and cracked it open like any person's doing research and looking at the data source logging. And I'm literally on the second page, and he gives a use case scenario, and he says, a DNS twist algorithm. And thinking back to kind of my mentor Yuri over in product group for Defender for Cloud, I go, well, I don't know what this DNS twist algorithm is. So the first thing I do is I open up Grok or X.com or Copilot, and I type in what is a DNS twist algorithm? Like, what is this guy trying to infer by this? Next thing I know, I'm going down this rabbit hole of like, well, that's interesting. Like a DNS twist algorithm is basically the sense of if I have a domain name like ohiohealth.com, and I take that domain name and I want to do some phishing attack or some type of attack with that customer profile, I'm going to maybe use ohiohealth.com, but maybe I'll register a domain with zeros where the O's are in Ohio. Or maybe I'll take, if you're typing www.ohiohealth.com, maybe I'll drop that period and I'll register www.ohiohealth.com. So there's all these different types of techniques around domain names and domain squatting that are out there. And that's what that DNS twist algorithm is trying to do, is to take a legitimate domain name and permutate all types of different ways that someone could fat finger it, could potentially make it look like it's a phishing attempt or redirect right from a sign-in web splash page. So that kind of got me thinking a little bit, right? And I'm supposed to be writing at this point, like, this event ID will give you this type of security value and give you some more analysis than, you'll find in the MD device telemetry, right? So next thing I know, I'm going down this rabbit hole. I ping Tony Sims. I'm like, Tony, you did it again. I'm only 2 pages into this book, and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The creative side of me starts thinking, okay, cool. We've got these domain names. What if I'm kind of a customer and I need to secure my kind of digital estate? Well, Defender for External Attack Surface Management does a really good job of you putting in your organization name and then inventorying from an external perspective all of your IP addresses, all of your domain names, all of your kind of content that's out there externally that an attacker would see. I was like, that's really neat, because if I'm trying to do this DNS twist algorithm, and I'm trying to do this at scale, like, I don't want to have to manually think about all the different domain names that I'm aware of as a security person, that my marketing team, or in like the healthcare industry, as an example, maybe there's a researcher side of a university, and that researcher side of your business, your hospital business, is spinning up other domain names and other assets and properties that you may not be aware of. And so Defender External Attack Surface Management basically gives you that inventory. And I thought, well, great. So now I could query that inventory of all these domain names, and maybe I could do some DNS twist algorithms on them and throw them into a watch list in Microsoft Sentinel, and then do some threat hunting against maybe my like network flow logs, firewall logs. Maybe I've got a third-party mail security provider, and so maybe I've got some proof point logs, and I'm capturing some of that stuff too. And so I kept spinning around like, oh, this is really interesting. And what fascinated me about this was like, when I asked Grok, I said, hey, can you just write me a quick PowerShell script to do some DNS domain twisting? And let me present my screen if I can here.
What you talked about, I don't know if you remember, we talked about this about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Matt Egan, been on the show. Shout out to you, Egan. He was doing something similar, but I remember us talking about that. One of the more technical names for it is called homograph. When you just take one particular letter or symbol that has a visual similarity to the actual character in the URL. And that also has different things, but I won't steal your thunder. I want you to go ahead and run through it. But I remember you talking about this almost a year and a half ago.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, what's funny is I said, hey, can you write an Azure PowerShell script that takes a list array, and I'm going to just provide it here. Shout out to Home Trust Banking in Western North Carolina. Got my first kind of real job there in a help desk, and so was like, hey, can you generate some twist domains? He said, yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and generate a really interesting PowerShell script to do some of that technique that you're describing there, Edward. And let me explain it a little bit. What was fascinating was number 4, limitations. So as generative AI is reasoning over this request I've made, it goes, hey, I gave you a simplified DNS twist PowerShell script, but by the way, there's a full DNS twist tool set, like a Python library called DNS twist. Like, what? Well, that's cool. So I'm like, that's kind of crazy. Unbeknownst to me, I still, I'm stuck on page 3 on this chapter. If I would have went 3 more pages, the author would have talked about this library and who had developed it. So the next thing I decided to do was to say, you know what? Let me just do some quick searching out there about this DNS twist, basically Python library that he built. And I found it. And what was fascinating about this was in the documentation, he says, hey, are you in a hurry? Do you want to try it in your web browser? I'm like, well, this is really kind of cool. So let me just open this into a web browser. And I'm kind of curious because I'm like, I'm going to open up like developer tools here. And I'm going to just monitor what's going on when I decide to make this scan for Ohio Health and do these permutations. And what you can see here is it's not just simply making like that PowerShell script some changes with zeros and ones, right, or moving that. It's actually got a full set of different types of fuzzying techniques that are out there where we're trying to add stuff, techniques called bit squatting, which looks like ohiohealth.com, but is ohiohealth.com. And it's going through all these kinds of permutations. It's then also doing a reverse DNS lookup to give you the IP address if it's somewhere registered on a name server, and then if there's an MX record associated with it. So now you're getting a lot more intelligence around these different DNS names that it's trying to permutate through potentially that could be used by an attacker. And what's fascinating about this is, as I was kind of looking through this, was, well, that's interesting. If I look at this, like it's actually got an API, this website. Now, I don't want to spam this gentleman's website, right, by writing a solution. So I started thinking to myself, well, I'm kind of curious if the website has an API and I can make a post call to it by sending ohiohealth.com. Let me go back to his GitHub page and let me just kind of look at some of his code. And what popped up to me was like, oh, he's got a web application version of this. And it's a Docker file. So I could build this in Docker. After a couple attempts, and this is where when we think about generative AI and how helpful it is, I started saying, hey, when I tried to do this Docker build, it didn't quite come up properly. Like the web application wasn't responding. So I said, hey, can you help me based on this output error that I'm getting when I tried to do a Docker build on this? What would you kind of suggest? And how can I also publish this on Docker publicly so that if I'm building a solution, right, end to end, and I want this API and this web app to be hosted by me so that I can use the API, how can I do this publicly so that I can use like an Azure container registry, Azure container instance, and point to that public Docker build? So again, I don't know much about Docker, right, other than a little bit that I studied over the years, but don't have a lot of practical experience with it. And so sure enough, right, like this is just so awesome what generative AI can do for you. It actually said, hey, you're going to want to try to test this locally. Here's some ideas on how to debug this. And then here's how you publish it, right? Run these commands to publish this to the worldwide Docker so that if you build a solution, you can point to it with an Azure container instance. And so just fascinating enough, this actually got me the answers I needed to get the Docker image running correctly, changed a couple settings and files in the Docker image and what was building from it. And then I published it out on Docker Hub. Because ultimately, what I'm fascinated with is the fact that there's an API here where I can send a scan job. It's going to create all the permutations. And then I can download it as a JSON file. I can download it as a CSV file. I can look at other aspects of it and call the API and get the response back in JSON. And this was ultimately kind of how I started thinking about, like, well, if I can do all this, like, surely I can then, as a security practitioner, using external attack surface management, think about all the domains my organization has. For each, run them against this API. And then for all the permutations, load them into a watch list for threat hunting purposes that I could use later. And then, by the way, just keep this running every week. If there's new inventory out there, new domains that have been found with my organization, throw them in as a permutations, and then throw them and update my watch list accordingly on a weekly basis. So now I can not necessarily set it and forget it. Like you're going to have to do some tuning for this for sure, but now you can actually start catching new domains that marketing or a researching arm of your company may have spun up 2 days ago that you just weren't aware of, right?
That's interesting. So a couple things, just to kind of amplify those a little bit. Number one, I love that you're using Grok. I use Grok. Is there a reason why you use Grok over maybe some of the ones that we're more familiar with, Copilot or ChatGPT or some of the others? I'll tell you right now, there's no wrong answer, because I use Grok all the time. I think it's awesome. But why do you use it?
Yeah, Rod, that's a great question. So first, when DeepSeek got announced, I was playing with that and was kind of blown away and fascinated with the way it was reasoning through things versus what I had seen with Copilot before, right?
Yeah.
Example might be, hey, I've got a list, a file A and a file B, and they've got all these event IDs or information in them. What I want to do is between file A and file B, show me what's different, right? What's unique in file A versus file B. You would use a beyond compare tool back in the day or Visual Studio Code to do this. Well, I was getting frustrated because Copilot would just break. It wouldn't do what I wanted to do. And so when DeepSeek came out, I tried it and I was, whoa, that actually found that it's actually functioning the way I want it to function. Lo and behold, right, we can't use DeepSeek, right? Or there's some implications around that. So when when Elon Musk, I think a few weeks later, announced that, hey, we just finished a new superset, we're going to load it in Twitter or X, and it's called Grok. I started playing with that, and I found that Grok was doing a lot of unique things that other, like your Chat GPT or your Copilot, wasn't reasoning or thinking. And yeah. I'll admit, it could be that I just am terrible at prompts, and Grok is trying to interpolate and think about how I'm really asking that question, right? Just because I can't prompt properly. But that's actually how I landed using Grok a lot lately here, Rod.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good use case too. I mean, it's not necessarily the use case, but I think from my perspective, the way that these things should be evolving is that we should just be able to ask a question how we all ask a question. We all ask questions differently because we want a different answer, or it relayed to us in a different way based on, how we ask questions. So this whole thing about prompt engineering, I think is initially was kind of this important thing to understand how to utilize these types of tools. But I think now these days we should be getting to the point where we can just literally ask it any question we want. And I'll be honest, be brutally honest, because I originally started talking about how we need to get away from the old search engine mentality of just typing in 4 words and expecting a response. But even Copilot these days, I can do the same thing that I could have done in Google or something. I could type in 4 words and it seems to know what I'm asking. So it's going back to that anyway, which I don't know if that's a good thing. I was kind of hoping that all of these LLMs would be able to fix the English language, or fix people's usage of the English language where we actually had to, ask real questions again. But like you said, it kind of tries to determine what it is that you want as that result. The other thing, so you mentioned you still have to do some things to get the CSV file. Have you thought about automating that, or that's probably the next step in this, right? Because I'm thinking in my mind, right? Number one, there's logic gaps, but then number two, because I think, and I spend a lot of time where I do, I'm thinking about these agents coming up, where maybe there's an agent that could in real time just kind of create that CSV and include it. Here, I'll add this back. There you go.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Rod. I do want to get to that point where I start thinking about agentic systems. I caught Roberto Rodriguez, who formerly a Microsoft employee, done some amazing research out there. He's giving a session at a Yellow Hat conference recently about agentic systems. Had done some proof of concept work as well on his GitHub around it. I'll admit I'm not the on the latest and greatest in the generative AI space, but to your point, it would be kind of cool to start thinking of that as an agentic task or system. I went about solving it the old school way, right? And so what I started thinking about was, hey, how do I you know take the ESM inventory data and then go ahead and then populate it into a Sentinel watch list. And so what I ended up doing was just built an old school logic app, but you could see some of the challenges here, right? Like because it's a logic app and because I'm doing parallelism with each domain and I'm having to take the domain and pass it to that API. And that API is asynchronous, meaning, right, it starts a job, but it doesn't have the full answer yet because it's got to go through all those permutations. And so it's got kind of a counter waiting, the number of remaining permutations it has to go through before the job's complete. And so because of all that, right, I'm looking at like 1.64 hours of this running, right, just for 50 domains as an example, right? Now, that's testing with this is like ohiohealth.com, which is a healthcare provider out there in Ohio. But you can imagine, right? Maybe you're a much bigger organization, and you've got like hundreds or thousands of domains. Well, that might be a little long to be kind of running this in a logic app. Maybe you'll drop into a function. But to your point, Rod, like maybe the future is for, can I write this as an agentic system that then runs this and then sends the results and updates the watch list a little bit more efficiently. Since generative AI can kind of crank through stuff a little bit faster.
I have a challenge for you. So I'm just thinking this through, especially with agentic systems, which, by the way, sounds like one of those new fancy drugs. They always make up those weird names for drugs. It's agentic AI. Would be to probably a logic app that would pull in that CSV file, sends it to a Azure AI search index that automatically gets updated. So at that point, you don't even need to update the watch list. You'd literally just use that Copilot logic app connector to query that CSV file that's sitting out there being indexed all the time.
Yeah, that's a really interesting use case. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Rod, or in my own words, listening to that, we're taking the ESM inventory on a basis, we're throwing it into the search indexer, and then we're permutating off of that furthermore into a data set. And then generatively speaking, I just asked the question, hey, in my logs in the last 24 hours, have any permutations or have we seen any kind of DNS twist takes with any of my data, right? And then from that perspective, it might write a natural KQL query to run against that, or might look at the data and then present some results back to you.
Yeah, I think it gives you a lot of options at that point. Then you can just basically do anything you want to with it. Yeah, that whole generative AI thing. I'm always trying to use generative AI to shortcut things these days, make things a little bit quicker. But to go back to your comment on old school, I truly appreciate old school because I think that you have to do old school first to see if it's relative or if it, could potentially work. Obviously generative AI is going to do what it does or some of these agentic stuff. But we don't know if it's actually the right thing in some respects. You kind of have to do it old school to determine if this, I absolutely want this before I allow something else to do it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this sample environment we're looking at, here's kind of the end result of that threat hunting query is. And by the way, I used Grok again. I said, I started writing the actual query myself. Well, I'll be honest, right? I started with Grok. I said, hey, write me a query for this, this, and this. And I got this, and I got a little ambitious, right? I go, hey, use the ASIN parser for any network session, right? I throw it in there, right? It's like, no, there's some errors. Like, I don't know what this event user is, like, or there's no data set for event user. I'm erroring out. So I said, okay, let me craft this the old school way. Let me go look at the table. Let me look at some of the data fields and the schema. Let me test it and expand it, right? And what was interesting about that too, when we think about ways that generative AI can kind of help us, I ended up um, saying something to the effect, if I remember correctly, like, "Hey, I threw the query in there. I said, hey, just analyze this query that I wrote." And what was really cool is it did it. It said, hey, you're trying to get a watch list DNS twist. You're trying to filter out the original domain names. Um, And what was really interesting about this is it starts, critiquing it. It says, "Hey, some potential issues and considerations," and I love it too, right? So it's like almost like you think about Toastmasters like a glow, grow, glow model, right? So it's doing this, right? Generatively speaking, it says, "Hey, you're making some assumptions about the data. You might want to use some case sensitivity here. The
Nathan,
performance of it."
did you
Um,
have to ask Grok to do, or did it just
no,
it was
it just
incorporated by default? Like
by
here's
default.
your KQL, and also here's my perspective on it. Like you didn't
I
have.
I just asked it, analyze this KQL for me. And that's all I said was just analyze it,
That's
right?
it.
Yeah, it's
And
it's
that's
one of
what's
the things that it's built into, which shows where the just the general use AI is taking on specialties and some of the more pointed stuff. Like that capability is built into Copilot for GitHub, but it's in Copilot for GitHub. Not everybody's a developer who'll be using Git, right? And you have to have the application. But to see just a consumer, an average consumer based generative AI tool be able to do that, seeing that you can see that the capabilities are expanding. And then I think a lot of these AIs are probably learning for something else. You should put in there um, uh, M365 Copilot wrote this KQL. Can you do better? See, see, and see what happens, right? And then take it and go back. Grok wrote this. Can you do better? And see, and get that going, right? And that would be similar to Mr. Who's our guest on the show that wrote that AI self-programming AI solution, Mr. Disney, Rob Disney.
Yes, Mr. Disney. Yep.
Yeah, this is really cool. This is why you up late at night. You couldn't get out the rabbit hole. You didn't know which way was
I
up.
couldn't, right? At this point it's probably Saturday 2 a.m. and I'm getting really tired, right? And I'm like, all right, I gotta go to bed. I'll keep noodling on it and finish out the solution. I hadn't built the logic app at that point. But yeah, it's quite fascinating. The output it will try to give you with the example. And then I said, hey, take the suggested improvements and write a new query for me that I ended up putting in that Sentinel instance that we were just looking at with those improvements in mind. And the reason why I'm kind of on here today to kind of talk about it is not like, look at this cool stuff at Dell. It's really to start thinking about, like, as security practitioners and folks out there. Like, my background's probably not. I didn't go through a SOC, hence I'm kind of reading this book here. I came from an engineering and help desk background, but as you encounter new things in the world, concepts like this DNS twist algorithm, or things as a security practitioner you learn and solve, I really think we're almost at this point where generative AI is going to help empower so many thousands of people from this open source building concept. I look out there and Daniel Card is doing something totally different, but from his security practitioner perspective, consultancy, he says, "Hey, I want to build like a crime mapper," and he's using Grok as well. And he's built basically a cyber investigation tool in the browser. Now, I'm pretty sure Daniel probably doesn't have an extensive knowledge on web design and web building, but through generative AI, right, he can take that security practitioner knowledge or a concept that he learns and then quickly apply it into an application. And I think I have an example of it. Yeah, here it is. So I loaded some indicators of compromise out there that he's been doing over the course of weeks. So I've just been following him on X, and he's like, "Hey, I added this new feature. I added that new feature." Right. So, it started with importing indicators of compromise, and then building a graph relationship of them. And where it's turned to is he's built an entire in-browser enrichment experience where you put in the API key for your enrichment, and it will go out and enrich this data. In fact, this is going to look kind of familiar with some of the products that we have at Microsoft. But I love this idea of just, I've got this knowledge, or I'm learning something new. How do I make this practical in a way that I could have never done before, or even dreamed of doing? Right? I would have had to know, like, taking some courses on web design or taking some courses on Docker or whatnot. And I just want to, at the end of the day, see if I can make a quick proof of concept and see if this works, see if there's some value there. And so I really feel like we're at this dawn of this age of like a lot of folks with like really good domain and tribal knowledge and maybe don't have a programming background or an engineering background, being able to start exploring these ideas in shorter cycles now, right? So I'm blown away with that. And that's kind of what I did over the weekend and why I wanted to jump on that call, Edward, is like, I don't know, I'm old school. I'm like, if I read something new, like for me, how to learn it is to actually practice and doing it versus, just reading and watching a YouTube video. Those are helpful. They start with a primer, but actually getting your hands dirty with it. And then I feel like with generative AI, it's just exponential now in terms of productivity with what you want to do with doing that stuff.
Well, and that's a piece of that too, right? So you, obviously, Nathan, you can figure this stuff out on your own, but you use Grok, generative AI. But how long do you think this would have taken you otherwise?
Yeah, so anytime, right, and this was interesting about this, Rod, was when ChatGPT launched 2 years ago, I actually stopped writing automations. So I haven't built a solution or an automation in almost like 2 years, 18 months. I just was like, all right, game over. I guess I'm getting replaced. I'm not going to build anything. Yeah, I focused on some other aspects, soft skills and stuff. But what would have previously taken me, right, 2 years prior, that solution I was talking about with taking ESM data, building an ARM template, one click to deploy, the logic app, building the watch list and testing, that would have easily taken 2 weeks, right? And just testing, refining. I would have had to refer to REST API learn docs and ARM template docs. With Grok, it took me 2 days to where I'm at today with this kind of working right now in a POC. So from like 2 weeks to 2 days, that's pretty impressive. And this actually got me excited again to get back into the solutioning space and engineering space. Because rather than seeing it like, okay, I guess I'm going to get replaced, it's more like, wow, this really is like getting some superhero powers, right? Like that I didn't have. Right?
Yeah, it augments what you can already do, or it takes your creativity and it allows you to do something with it almost immediately. And I just thinking about that, it's not a replacement, but I think, I mean, we may get to the point where employers are like, well, why didn't you use Grok? How long did it take you? Why didn't you use generative AI for that? If you use generative AI, how long would it have taken you? Because I can see, just looking at people's resumes, employers will start looking to see if they have not just that skill set they're looking for, but also the experience with generative AI, whatever that thing happens to be. Oh, we're going to hire you with this skill set, but you can do it this quickly because you have this experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about all the internal processes from a security perspective or IT perspective at your company. So again, we think about traditional applications versus generative AI. So as an example, right? Okay, now I'm starting to solution this. I got to put this on some markdown files. So I'll just use a little stack it at IO editor and code my things and, bold it because I don't really quite remember all the markdown tricks, right? But again, if we think about generative AI kind of helping you around that perspective, you could certainly take it to the next step and say, you know what? See if I still have it out here. Yeah. So, hey, here's a DNS twist, the different types of fuzzing techniques it can do. This is just a list, right, of the fuzzing techniques. And I just said, using this list, provide a simple table with the name of the fuzzer and a brief, simple explanation on this data homeoglyph, right? Kind of what you were talking about a little bit earlier, Ed, like in the technical term. And next thing you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to try to reason, and here's the table. But you did ask me to try to make this, I think, in Markdown. Oh, no, that's what I said. Can you show me the code for this table in Markdown? So the second prompt was like, okay, there you go, copy, pasta, and I'm done. But we start thinking about, like, right, as a security person, internally when I'm building my documentation, a lot of the capabilities now, a lot of the tool sets are like in Markdown or other types of things. And so, again, generative AI to the rescue here for the win, because it's like it can start helping build out this stuff so that, like, if junior analyst comes on board and he's like, okay, what the heck is this threat hunting query? Okay, it's talking about DNS twist algorithm. Like, that's cool, but what the heck is the difference between a plural and a hyphenation, and why? Like, give me a practical example of that. And so, this is just kind of another example of generative AI on the documentation side as you're building out tools and solutioning, or internally with your security teams, that you can use this stuff to just really, like, power through what have taken like hours to write that all out, quickly research and look it up, just 2 prompts, right? You've got this explanation for you.
Well, it's like you take a feature or something that you're working on and you build out your spec list as you go along. You just feed it your spec list and say, hey, write some documentation for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so, today I'm still working on it from this weekend, but eventually I want to take that logic app, get it templatized, and so that ultimately one day you can just click this deploy to Azure button. It'll create the external attack surface space. It will link and export the data into your Sentinel. It will push the Azure container instance with the DNS twist web app that we were looking at. It will then publish and deploy the logic app, which will run on a timer weekly to basically take the domain inventory, pass it through the permutations, and then publish and push it into the Sentinel watch list. That will actually get deployed with it as well too. So it's about 80% there. There's still some work I got to do with it. It was only the weekend, but I hope to get it up and running probably by the end of this week, and then maybe figure out how to do this in the content hub.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Nathan. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm good.
Does it use a free version of EASM?
No, it will actually publish the ESM workspace. You'll have to manually seed your organization data to it. But I didn't realize we had a free version. Do we have I know we have a trial.
There is sort of like a free version, but the free version doesn't give you much because you said you got the paid version is how you actually seed it if you're not a bigger company. So the larger you are, the freer the free version looks like, because you could be one of the discovery nodes that's out there for it, right? So
awesome.
Yeah, I played around with it and I kept saying, why is my domain not showing up? Well, you're not big enough, but bigger companies sometimes find out to see the domain. And then just like you used to do network discovery using the old SolarWinds tools, you had a seeder router that would then be the seed for DNS discovery and router discovery. I'm like, how does they do that without the pay one? But yeah, you're right. You still have to go in, and if someone's already using ESSM, Echo Alpha Sierra Mike, I wonder would it try to overwrite it? That dude probably needs to write in. If you're already using this, you need to modify these frames to be able to do. Look at that! Look at that Nathan Swift with no hair on his face. That's got to be AI generated.
For what he was working on, and sure enough, I just put this straight to his GitHub page. You need to change that. Nobody else is going to recognize you. Need to change that.
Oh, you need to change it to -MSFT. So this was my old GitHub handle. My first year as a CSA or second year as a CSA at Microsoft, circa 2016. So it's like circa 2016, 2017. You see how these years at Microsoft have, I'm just kidding.
Microsoft ages you. I didn't have any hair on my face. So what Microsoft does to you, it removes this hair and then it puts hair here. Then it raise it out for you next.
There we go. So now I've got an avatar, look like a detective, I guess, from film noir, and I'm trying to solve a case, right?
Oh, there's the DNS. There it is. DNS twist. There it comes. Awesome. I'll have to put that in the show notes. People can track it.
You always bring the heat, man. This is a good thing. When you finish, you definitely want to come back and try to. I'll run in my test environment, see if it blows up my environment. I think I already see. Not sure. Yeah, I'm already running ESM, and there's a little hack out there for one person where you could create these pseudo seeds that make it seem like your organization is one of the seed points, and then populate it there. But after a while, you have to be careful with it, because when your next Azure bill comes, you will know. You will be. You better have the American Express Black Card on standby when you get the bill.
Yeah, external attack surface management, or that EASM, right? It's pretty, for most mid-sized organizations, it's very cheap consumption-wise to start. But it is one of these systems that when you're looking at your external attack surface, you can't set it and forget it. To your point, Edward, you do have to go through like a monthly pruning, if you will, right? Like a bonsai tree, and you got to think about it like, okay, well, it started to branch off here, thinking that my whois domain is associated with these 5 domains, which then created 20,000 assets of inventory. And so, like a bonsai tree, you got to go in sometimes and look at the chain and go, okay, I'm going to prune this back up a little bit, or hey, I didn't know this. There's actually some shadow cloud that somebody spun up in AWS or in DigitalOcean over here. I need to go talk to that person.
Yeah, very funny, Noodle. It's highly likely the book be running Meraki. Yeah, that's right, Noodle. So anyway, well, man, thank you so much, Nathan. This has been awesome, man. When you get the finished product, let us know so we can actually get it published out on our show notes and get it to our user via the website. I'm trying to figure out, do I have cycles to try to put it in mind, but I need to finish too many other projects I got. I'm looking over there now, this evil list of stuff I got to get done. One of them is here is meet with Ray to do abstract for presentation. I'm gonna go ahead and just mark that as complete. We got to figure it out. Well, Mr. Nathan, I'm sorry we ran over, sir. We really appreciate your time. On that note, I will see you next month. Come out and hang out with me and Josh. I'm gonna be in Charlotte for 4 days. So I don't know if he told you I'll be at the office. So come out and hang out. You can help proctor one of these things I got to deliver.
Absolutely. That Shadow Hunters thing. For anyone watching the show or listening, check out Microsoft Events. Look for Shadow Hunters. It's in your area. Well worth some time. Well worth a day getting some free lunch, but also getting some hands-on with technology and hunting for shadow cloud and security misconfigurations.
Yep. And if you want to come be one of the co-delivers, be myself and Jeff Sluggenberger. So Sluggenberger will be there with me. And Josh
I'll be there. I'll be in Charlotte that day, ready to go.
Okay. I look forward to seeing you, man. You can come in and correct me when I say something wrong. You know I'm not heavy in the MDC. And I'll also be delivering the Security Copilot Flight School.
That's what I'm really interested in, is that flight school. I love the branding, the name, Just sounds cool. Feel like you're gonna get like a Top Gun like flight suit.
Maverick.
Yeah, the pilot hat.
I may get up on the podium with that very hat on and some goggles, little something to the thing, right? We'll see. I got to deliver it. I'm delivering it here in Atlanta, April 30th and May 1st. And then my next time I'll deliver it will be in Charlotte, which will be the 14th and 15th. So got time to prepare, man. Get signed up for sure. I get your account created. Otherwise you can't get in. You know, somebody call sign. Yeah, I
can't think of one. So I think people give you the call sign. You don't create it. So
yeah,
fair enough.
Anyone in the chat, if you come up with a call sign for me, I'll
Am I the only one? I feel like I think of names and they're all just puns. It's like Raymageddon, Razor Blade. I don't know why they're always like
Razor
this.
Blade.
But those are the things that I Ray of Sunshine. There we go. You got that. So
Ray Fu. Yeah.
I'm gonna put one in here.
There we go.
Circling back to the whole martial arts thing that didn't work well.
Raying hell. Yeah.
Raising hell. I need to put a Z in there somewhere. I forgot to put a Z. But to all our listeners, we really appreciate you guys coming on. This was an excellent kickoff. Actually, it's our second one. Oh, our second show in our Tech Heavy Month. So thank you so much, Mr. Swift, for coming on. We ask all our listeners to continue to come in. Once again, we deliver as promised. Demo heavy, visuals to go along with the nomenclature and the talk about. We'll continue this. I don't remember we're going to have an additional show that will take us to 5 this month because I know we've had some people that want to get in, but we'll figure it out. Also, we want to go ahead and start pre-promoting our Purview month. We're going to have an entire month of Purview. We still haven't forgotten about the show, what month that Ray and I are going to sponsor, Show Us Your Certs. So we're going to get everybody with their certification history. We're going to talk about that. Partner month is coming up there, and we're having fun. The weather's broken. The pollen is gone. Goodness, the pollen is stopped. You have to live in the South to get it. So this time next week, people, have a good one.
Have a great week.
Bye.